Hello, friends. This is Matt, and this is Something from Everything, a podcast about embracing and making meaning and discovering wisdom through telling better stories. And this story came out in August of this year. At that time, the place where I live, in the Okanagan in British Columbia, was surrounded by wildfires. We had family members who were evacuated. We were on evacuation alerts. All around us, smoke all the time. And at that time, we were also having a breakout amount of COVID cases at the hospital where I work, much more so, exponentially larger in the city where I live compared to even the rest of British Columbia, the province where I live. So this was a time when I was feeling overwhelmed. And this post is about when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling completely depleted, and when you go to turn to those things that usually center you, ground you, give you strength to keep going, and they fail utterly. And I think we've all been in a moment like that where our previous attempts aren't working. And that is, it's disorienting, but at the same time, there's a grace in that. And that's what this post is about. This post is entitled Wrong Answers Only. Because sometimes that's all you got. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking for. I speak the words to myself, to the air, to whatever deity or saint might be listening and willing to help me out a bit. There is more than a note of desperation to it. I've made my way to the most secluded room in the house, this room. In the desk in front of me is as clear as it ever is. The laptop is closed. The monitor pushed back, and the keyboard moved aside. In their usual place sits only my phone, a large play button visible on the screen. A few minutes ago, I was listening to a podcast about meditation and contemplation. I've paused the program and retreated to this room for the final few minutes. This is the moment where the host of the podcast is inviting the listener to become a participant, to enter into 5 minutes of silence and breath meditation. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking for. It might be a lot this day. On any given day, this ritual might be relaxing, but not on this day. On this day, I can feel only desperation. I've chosen a breath meditation because I feel like I can't get a full breath in. I woke with my chest tight, the weight of grief and anxiety pressing down on me. Even as I stretch and move about the house, it feels like there is an elastic band around my chest. Breathing feels like a chore rather than a birthright. I close my eyes and begin to focus on my breath anyway. The meditation begins. And the silence turns out to be anything but. In the dead space after the invitation to begin, I hear the host lean back into his chair, hear the scratching of beard hairs, hear each time he swallows, coughs, or clears his throat. I can hear the distant muffled sounds of his neighbors laughing. I hear similar sounds in my silence as well. I hear my children running across floors above me. I can hear my own chair creak and rub with every movement. And mostly, I hear the sound of my own shallow, labored breathing. As soon as I start to become accustomed to the various noises and sounds, I begin to notice my anxious thoughts. The silence reveals them as they encircle my head like a swarm of mosquitoes, buzzing and nondescript in the distance, and then alighting on me, whispering their high-pitched interruptions. Maybe I can't breathe because it's COVID. I can't breathe because of the smoke. It's probably only going to get worse. The kids have hardly been biking at all this year. What's it going to be like? Is this going to be every summer? When was the last time I changed my air filter? Maybe it's time to buy some better ones. Even at work, it smells like smoke. I wonder how short we will be today. I'm still breathing fast. How many times am I breathing in a minute? Should I count? If it's 18, how many breaths is that in 5? My interrupting thoughts break off, dissipating into the air as quickly as they came. The 5 minutes of silence has been anything but. The podcast host strikes his bell, a Tibetan singing bowl, signaling the end of the meditation. Even through the tiny, tinny phone speaker, the sound immediately quiets me. I momentarily forget about my thoughts, forget about my breathing, and am at peace. Feeling is resonance. The wavering note of it hangs in the air a long time as the meditation host lets it fade into obscurity. And then, without invitation, my thoughts return. I wonder if they sell those singing bowls on Amazon. And I start to laugh. It really is laughable. You have to laugh or else cry over how ridiculous it all is. Searching Amazon for enlightenment, seeing if they have a deal on inner peace, seeing what other shoppers who purchase tranquility have also put into their virtual carts. The whole scene is suddenly satirical. The day's utterly failed meditation becomes comical. My constant turning to commerce to soothe me, my distractible and anxious mind, my inability to shut up for even 5 minutes. I'm reminded of Blaise Pascal's assertion that all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. The laughter is somehow freeing. At least it is honest. My breathing starts to come a little deeper. I can see myself in that moment from a distance, earnest but hopelessly lost. Overwhelmed from widespread work burnout, a crashing fourth wave of COVID, the terror of watching young, healthy people struggling for breath or sent to the ICU. I'm reeling from the death of 2 children I briefly cared for, from the sound of their parents' wretched cries, and I'm feeling trapped by the constant smoke and the encroaching fires. I'm feeling hopeless as climate scientist after climate scientist raises louder and louder alarms of a point of no return, and humanity seems incapable of responding. This is a moment of crisis, and it is one I feel completely unprepared for. Whatever wisdom, beauty, and hope usually inspires me or buoys my spirits, it is not working this morning. I have no right answers. I have wrong answers only. Perhaps there is a grace in finding the wrong answers. You see, I have a love-hate relationship with spiritual, religious, or wisdom traditions. I love that they offer a place to ask the deepest questions and speak to our deepest needs. I believe that they are at their best when they ground us in a story much larger and more ancient than ourselves. But many times, these traditions can be presented and sold in a manner that is shallow, superficial, or even outright deceitful. Little more than self-serving posturing, posing, and pretending. Sometimes you can't immediately tell the difference. Maybe a Tibetan singing bowl seems like it'll bring you inner peace and look great on your Instagram feed until it arrives in that Amazon box and you still feel unsettled. Maybe a mindfulness practice promises to calm and ground you until you realize that it is a practice, and practice includes even the frustrating and failed attempts. Maybe all these practices and wisdom teachings promise to make you a more resilient and self-sufficient person, but in your most miserable moments, you realize the need for a community to hold you when you fall apart. Sometimes the wrong answers reveal our deepest needs. There's little wrong with occasional retail therapy, magical thinking, or the desire for self-sufficiency. But in moments of true crisis and desperation, I don't need the superficial or deceitful. I need practices, community, and wisdom that feed me, quiets me, and grounds me, and ultimately prepares me for the realities that I will continue to face. We all need those things, regardless of how we acquire them. Real crisis separates some of the trash from the treasure, fool's gold from the real stuff. Thank goodness for the wrong answers. May they lead us to better ones. Thanks, friends.